And we have kind of a special Sunday, and you'll see as we go through it. But Jeff and Carole are taking a major role today. Carole is going to lead worship here with Teena and Rick helping, and then Jeff's going to speak to us, and we'll learn more about the work that these guys love in Zimbabwe.
Good morning. All right, we're going to start it this morning with some worship, just as I am. Just as I am without one plea, but that thy blood was shed for me, and that thou bidst me come to thee, O Lamb of God, I come. Just as I am, waiting not to rid my soul of one dark lot, to thee whose blood cleanses each spot, O Lamb of God, I come. I come broken to be mended, I come wounded to be healed, I come desperate to be rescued, I come empty to be filled, I come to be pardoned by the blood of Christ the Lamb, and I'm welcomed with open arms, praise God, just as I am. Just as I am, I would be lost, but mercy and grace my freedom bought, and now to glory in your cross, O Lamb of God, I come broken to be mended, I come wounded to be healed, I come desperate to be rescued, I come empty to be filled, I come guilty to be pardoned by the blood of Christ the Lamb, and I'm welcomed with open arms, praise God, just as I am. I come broken to be mended, I come wounded to be healed, I come desperate to be rescued, I come empty to be filled, I come guilty to be pardoned by the blood of Christ the Lamb, and I'm welcomed with open arms, praise God, as I am. Praise God, just as I am. The next song is called Waymaker. It might be new too, but it's been out there a little bit since 2016.
This one may also be new to lots of folks. It's by Lauren Daigle. And I just love, love, love the words to this song. Because things in life don't always go the way we think, hope, or plan. And I think we just still have to declare that even though it's not going the way we hoped or thought or prayed, we're going to just hold on and trust.
Letting go of every single dream, I lay each one down at your feet. Every moment of my wandering never changes what you see. I've tried to win this war, I confess. My hands are weary, I need your rest. Mighty warrior, king of the fight. No matter what I face, you're my
I never have, ever.
I just have never seen Carole lead music from piano before and sing. I thought it was wonderful.
This is my first time here ever, well, this is my first time here doing that. I have taken some lessons from Teena, which I'm very thankful for.
Way to go. I like the way that you found traditional hymns too and mixed them with contemporary verses. And then what I really love is you have music going through you. When I was watching you, I was just saying, oh, some of us when we do music, we're just doing what we've practiced. But you have music go right through you. It's nice. And I really like that you had a really good band here with Rick and Teena and Renata. I was picking up the extra vocals and loving it.
Should you mention the art?
Yes, Jess, do you want to come and say something about the art?
The art arrived. And Ian hung it straight.
Come on.
So these are the 3 pieces we selected together. It was a joint effort between the imagination team and the leadership team. So it's Scott Erickson's work. He's a Canadian artist out of BC. And we chose these 3 pieces. This one with the birds eating out of the palm of the hand is called A Place at the Table. This one in the middle is called The Sorrowful Saint. And you'll see the tears are kind of watering the ground with a little seedling coming up. And the tree that's cut down over and over again is called Second Chance. Yeah.
Very nice. I think maybe every service you should probably say those names again. Okay, we have a couple of members of the imagination team that are going to share what this process has been like for them, and I think it's Julie and Rachel. So who's going first? Julie. Yeah. Great.
Rachel, I thought we were going to stand together and then be like this united front with red shoes. All men in red shoes.
Can you click him and say there's no place like home?
We planned this. I'm a walking Martin's advert. Yes, so we're just getting a little update about our thoughts, being on a team, a group of people who started meeting last January, December-ish, winter, and we were just coming out of lockdown and single family bubbles, and I joined this group, and I remember saying to the group that I really like the way things are at church, and I'm afraid we're going to change it, and I'm not going to like it anymore. And thankfully that didn't happen, but change is inevitable, and I was a little bit afraid of what that could mean for us as a church, because I was new to the church, and my experience thus far, I just loved and felt at home and felt very welcomed. I'm glad this wasn't the case, but it was really helpful for me to voice that concern of fear, to say, I'm afraid of change, I'm afraid this is going to change, and what does that mean? Change is inevitable, we all know that, we're all changing all the time. And that's okay to be afraid of certain things. It was okay for me to be afraid and to voice that in the group. And something that I truly appreciated was the process that we went through. And that process involved listening to each other, to the group members of the imagination team, listening to the community through the survey that many of you answered, and just taking that time to find out who we were as people, what our community looked like, what we needed. That was a really cool process for me to kind of slow down as a group and find out what the long haul could look like, and what, instead of checking boxes as a task force team, it was more like, let's slow down, let's take a minute, let's ask questions, let's listen. And that was a really powerful experience for me.
Beautiful.
It's Julie.
Fitch.
Aha, it's Fitch. Okay. Some notes on here. Okay. Hi. So, yeah, a few things that stand out to me about the process and what I appreciated about it. I realised coming in and saying yes to the invitation to be part of this group, that, come to realise over the years that it's always tempting for me as a human to kind of enter a group thinking, I want to put my best foot forward, I'm going to show certain parts of myself and not others. There's probably parts of me that are welcome here and acceptable and other parts that aren't, so kind of picking and choosing. And I came into this thinking, I'm kind of fed up of doing that, I think I would really like to just be able to be myself and bring all of me to this, the bits I like, the bits I don't like so much, because I think that's what is being asked for, is kind of just honestly me, and it felt safe to do that with that group, So not always easy, right? But safe. And so I think especially the bit that's hard for me to admit, because I would like to be I'm kind of lean towards being optimistic, and I would like to be purely that. But after a whole lifetime of group involvement and church involvement, there's lots of parts of me as well that are a bit jaded, a little bit skeptical. And I would wish that wasn't so, but I came into this thinking I have to be honest about that as well. And, a little bit skeptical about this process, and if anything good can come of it, to be honest, and feeling like that was important for me to say, and that, like you were saying, Julie, that was okay and held by the group, as well as my hope and my willingness. So what was interesting is discovering that, being able to bring myself as I am, and then the process that we went through of really listening to each of the others as we were, and other people in the community as they are, their real stories, their real hopes, fears, dreams, that my perspective and my experience broadened, and I found out, that is my experience, I can be honest about it, but also I don't have to stay there. I'm remembering Rick's life is not a story about me. And, we have a communal story, and there's a communal story I can listen to. I don't have to be stuck in my own little perspective and my own story about this. There's a bigger story that I'm hearing and I'm kind of claiming through this process. So that was really special. And having to kind of articulate some things that I believe or want or I'm afraid of was really good for me, and it feels like when we listen to other people in interviews and the survey, it was also good for them in a different way, to express for themselves also what they were hoping for and fearing and everything. And one thing that at one point when we were sharing our values, beliefs, biases, that kind of thing in the group, one thing that I put into words that was kind of a realization for me about how deeply I believed this, which was encouraging, was this. I believe, and sometimes struggle to believe, in the power of groups as incarnations of God and places of healing and transformation. And I articulated that and discovered how deeply true it was, and then I feel like I experienced it in the group process. A group as an even more radiant, full incarnation of God than just one individual, which we are too, but yeah. And then one last thing, I think, being the freedom that we were given by the leadership team to imagine because that's what we were called, the imagination team. So there's this kind of blank slate being given, like feel free to imagine. And that freedom, what I think, working from the basis of that freedom, I feel like what I discovered and what we discovered as a group was actually in part what already is in our midst, and who we already are, and who God is through us. Although that always has kind of an aspirational part to it, you know, when we listen to each other and ourselves, we hear who we are and who we also long to be and hope to be. So I feel like I heard that to a different degree and found it in myself, and that gives me hope for the future as we go forward with, you know, a lot of uncertainty and big changes and not knowing what this will look like exactly as we go forward, but with hope that we are a group that God is expressing God's self through and will continue to, and that as each of us bring our honest part and open to each other's part, then we can be more together than we are on our own. So yeah, it's been a really hopeful process for me. Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much, both of you. And then I think it's important to say, are there any things that we really would like to hold up as a community in prayer? Yeah, Pete?
Paul, he had a hip operated on.
Oh, way to go. Yeah, Paul had his hip operated on this week. Yeah.
We could say a prayer for him.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
My cousin Becky, that would be Hannah and Mary Main's mother, has been diagnosed with melanoma some time ago. Or, no, not melanoma, myeloma, which is a whole different thing. It's a blood problem, not a mole. Anyway, so over the weekend she had a small tumble and broke her arm. And the remission she was in is finished or whatever.
Oh.
And they want to do put her in an experimental trial kind of thing. Now she has this broken arm and it's all a big, and it's kind of scary, and she's kind of, well, they're all upset, of course, but I just thought maybe peace would be a good thing right now for her.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. So this is a lady. Her daughter was a student. One of her daughters was a student at our university, maybe 5 years ago or 6 years ago. And at that time, that's when we first learned about that cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And recently, last year, the year before, another one of her daughters was teaching at the university, and so very, very connected to the people that have been in the SSU world. So yeah, let's pray for peace for this family and for Becky. I haven't seen her in years, but I remember her as a wonderful person. So we'll think about Paul and his hip, and we'll think about Becky. Let's pray. Lord, for healing and in every way, in every part, for Paul, for Becky, for peace, for family, for the whole family, for all those concerned. Lord, hear our prayer. For our concerns for the world, for the flooding in Pakistan, for the war in Ukraine, for so many things, for fear about Taiwan, for so many places. Lord, hear our prayers. Light a candle for peace. Whisper the words, please let it come soon. Say a prayer for the world. Amen. So, Jeff's going to speak to us today, and Jeff's going to talk about Eden Children's Village in Zimbabwe, where he and Carole have visited several times for significant periods of time. And here you go. It'd be great to have you. You were there this summer, but this time just you, not the family.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks, Peter. Coming prepared. So Carole and I went to a ladies' missions group on Wednesday this week to talk about my trip. And when I was done, a couple of ladies thanked me for speaking, and one of them said, "Thanks for what you said and everything. It was really great and everything, and you're really good to look at."
That has never happened to me.
Right? Me either. I didn't know what to say to that. I just said, well, Carole married me for a reason. Yeah, so feel free not to say anything like that. Yeah, so... So we've been back here now for 5.5 years. When I need a date, I'm just gonna glance at my wife. And anyways, a friend of ours Deb's was getting married. And so just with things being the way they were, we decided that it was time for me to go and visit. Carole had started a new job, and so I went alone in May. And man, was that needed. It was a fantastic trip. Just to see where things have gone, how much has changed, how much is being developed. Of course, to see the kids and the teens and the young adults, the new staff, all of it. There was just so much change. The first few days, I was just kind of bewildered, trying to figure out who was who, trying to remember names. Everyone knows my name. I don't remember any of their names. That could be embarrassing at times, but they took it well and whatnot. Anyway. Oh, did I not turn this on? There we go. Yeah, so the first day I was there, I spent at Deb's wedding, and got to meet a bunch of new people and meet the groom, who I had never met before, and whatnot. So that was a kind of a tossed into the deep end of meeting all the new people. The compound where we lived before, there's another family living in what was our house, Matt and Tracy and their 2 kids. So that was great to see the house being used and stuff. Matt's being taught to take over the running of the farm, and Tracy, she's homeschooling her 2 kids and does various things with the ladies around. One of the first things I did, of course, was go by the clinic. This was the clinic, obviously, in 2016, and this is the clinic now. Yeah, so the thatch roof hadn't covered the whole thing. I left an open courtyard was left in the middle for the tree and stuff, but rainy season was not great. So people who are waiting to be seen, they were usually outside, so they were getting soaked and stuff. And so they took off the thatch, they put on the steel roof, and they even built 2 rooms. You can see the windows at the front, on the front of it. And they've got beautiful hedges and gardens and stuff all around. It looks, I don't know where to stand, sorry.
No, you're good.
Yeah, it was really cool to see. Whoops, sorry. All right. And this is Lawrence. He's the gardener turned quasi-surgeon. If there's, honestly, it really is. They saw promise in Lawrence, and so he started getting training and stuff. If there's a wound care, abscesses, any of that grossness, he looks after it, and he's fantastic. He's given me stitches, he's given Naomi stitches, tested, I don't know, for malaria, whatnot. I mean, he's really fantastic. So he was eager to give me a tour of the new clinic kind of thing, the changed clinic. I got to meet some of the new staff. This is Mona Lisa. She will have graduated university now. She's a counselor, which is awesome. You know, they wanted to have a counselor for years. So she works with people at the clinic who just come, and now they offer counseling. She does HIV testing, HIV/AIDS testing. She's really great. And she goes to the village. She does play therapy with the kids. I think every week, every 2 weeks. I think every week. So she's a great addition. When they do the medical outreach, they do 2 of them. They do one every other week. They do one at a different location. And she goes. She has her own tent. She does the HIV/AIDS testing. She does counseling. This is Tendai. She's the nutritionist, so she's also new there. So she's working at. She does up the menus for the village, for all the kids' houses and stuff. She arranges buying whatever food that Eden doesn't grow, vegetables, fruits, and so on and so forth, and working with the babies that are brought in, or the children that are brought in malnourished, making sure that they're getting what they need to thrive. Let's see. This is Kathy. So Kathy used to work at the government clinic that Carole would run off to help deliver babies. Kathy was the nursing director there. Her husband was the midwife. Husband? Don't know. Anyways, so she now works at Eden as the nurse. She's an RN, and she is being trained to take over the operating of the clinic, which is awesome. She's really great, and I don't know how many times she asked me when we're coming back so that she could be with Carole. When's Carole coming? When's Carole coming? Talk to Carole. And anyways, the land is there. I was so happy. I drove that a lot. Our friend Debs had been using it and stuff, and a lot of repairs done to it and whatnot. So fun to drive. The medical outreaches were so fun. I've never driven on roads like that before. You see these people in side-by-sides, they'd have a tough time on these roads. It was fantastic just to see that it made it. You know, our container made it. So one of the things I wanted to do was go on the medical outreaches because Carole wasn't there with me. So Eden is in the boonies. Like I've told you 15 times, it's in the boonies. They go even further into the boonies for the medical outreaches. So we drove for an hour and a half the first time out to an old commercial farm called Gravlot. And so you leave at 5 in the morning. You can see the sun is just coming up there. Rory and Judy are in the lead Landy with pulling the trailer. And we take two Land Cruisers plus ours that day, and the trailer and tents and all this equipment and staff. Makunda, the pastor, he comes, he does spiritual counseling. Vuma, he does pastoral counseling. It's all hands on deck. And so there's just this empty lot. And people just start coming out of the trees because they can't get anywhere else. They're going to walk for days to get somewhere, and then they're going to have to pay, whereas everything that Eden does is for free. This is Judy. She's setting up the outhouse. And so before they begin serving everybody, after all the tents have been set up, all the equipment's been set up, and we eat our breakfast, everyone sits, and so you get the women on one side, the men on the other, very Pauline, and someone does a devotion with them, and they usually sing and stuff too. I'm not sure if that's going to work.
I think it's the next one. And it should.
Oh, I'm stuck. I think there's a play button on there somewhere.
Yeah, there it is.
Down the bottom.
Down the bottom left there. Well, It's okay.
Oh, there it goes.
There's the men over on that side, men's team and women's team. Anyway. And so then they bring all the medicines and stuff that are all made at the clinic. Again, the clinic's 80-85% herbal medicine that Eden staff make. And so there's a lot of babies out there. So what really occurred to me when I was there, this phrase started coming to me while I was out at this particular location, just because it's so remote, is from to. I was like, what does that even mean? So you're taking people from one situation to what? What are you offering people? What's the next thing? What can you offer? Especially for young women out there. And they're the ones that really jumped out at me. One of them was 20 years old. She's a man's second wife, and she had a newborn with her. And so the newborn's getting measured and weighed and all that stuff, and screaming and crying and getting shots and all that. And for young women that are so far out there, pretty much what you want to do is find a man that'll take you and keep you, hopefully for a while, for a long time. There's no jobs, there's no commerce, there's no shops to work in, nothing. So I was talking to Rory about it. Well, he was sitting doing paperwork. He loves going out on these outreaches because there's no cell service, and so he can get his paperwork done. So he kind of hides. And he's a great driver, and he can do anything. But and I just had to say, I mean, where's the hope? They go out there out to that location every month, and where's the hope? And they're bringing hope. They're bringing hope for these people, but I just struggle with the idea of what is it for? What's the to? They're gonna come back every time. They're gonna have their babies weighed. They have to bring in their paperwork and all this stuff. But where's the hope, especially for the young women? For the men, they're farming. Everyone's subsistence farmers out there. You grow it, you eat it, and that's your life. But where's the hope for especially the young ladies, especially a father of girls? That's what I'm thinking. Is like, man. So I have no answers. I have no answers. Yolanda, the girl on the left, she's one of the 3 teenage girls that Ian and Heidi Fry are in the process of adopting. And I lived at Ian and Heidi's house, and so I got a lot of opportunity to hang out with these 3 girls. And it was great. Yola is fantastic. And so she likes to work with the babies. So she's like measuring the bicep on this little kid. And then it's lunchtime, and so a couple of ladies, fire up the fire and throw on a pot of sadza and start cooking away lunch for us. And the lady's handing out the pharmacy. Notice the kid. He's white. He's albino. You don't want to be albino in Africa. Happiest little kid. Comes when he was only in sock feet, didn't have shoes on. But when he wasn't strapped to her back, he came toddling up to me, and so I picked him up and talking to him and stuff until he started peeing. There's no Pampers on that kid, and but he was the happiest little kid, and she I asked about him, and the mother really loves him, and really looks after him, puts a lot of effort into him. But I mean, that kid's gonna need sunscreen and hats and full clothes like all his life. He's gonna have a hard life. And there's other stuff that I don't want to talk about being an albino there. But he was a bright spark, that one. He was a lot of fun. And here's Rory at his desk, just doing paperwork. Rory Irvin, he and his wife Judy, he runs the labor, he runs the farm, he runs everything, it seems like some days. He and his wife Judy are white Zimbabwean, born and raised, grandparents, great-grandparents back. They used to own a farm that we pass on the way to this farm, which was 20 kilometers past Eden, and then we drive for another hour past it. So they're getting older. They're kind of looking towards maybe being able to retire someday. So he's training Matt to take over his role, and Judy's training Kathy to take over hers. But everyone wears 5 hats and does so much. But yeah, they have tremendous heart for the kids. It's amazing. You ever want to see Rory get angry? Talk about abuse of kids. And really happy. They have the teenage girls come, so there's a teenage house. Girls, they come down every week to their place and they cook a meal together and they hang out. They might watch a movie, Bible studies, whatever. They're really investing into the teen girls, which is really awesome. They're amazing people.
Can you say, like, how many children are at Eden's Village now?
There's probably about 120 now. They had a big influx. They had 28 kids brought to them all in one fell swoop. And social services know that they're full, but there's only so many orphanages in Zim. An orphanage in Croix was shut down, and so 28 of those children were brought to Eden. Eden is also one of the few or only orphanages that'll take newborns. So each house, there's 9 right now, I think, plus the teen homes. Girls over here, boys are over here and stuff. Each teen house has at least one infant or toddler.
Each
Each house.
Not each teen house, each house.
Each house. So there's a lot of little kids. And there's typically about 12 kids per house. And so there's a house mom and an auntie that are there. There's a couple of houses that have a couple, husband and wife team, but that's really rare. It's really hard for them to find people to take that role. And that's not including the kids that they're looking after out in community with extended families. Zimbabwe is doing a good job in trying to find extended family for these kids. Because they're not all orphans, we use the word orphanage, but I mean, I don't know how many of them are abandoned kids. They have family, they have extended family, they even have parents, some of them, who just can't afford them. They can't afford to feed another kid. So they take care of quite a few. They've got more staff now than they've ever had. They've got about 120 to 130 staff. So that means they're housing most of those and their families and clothing them and feeding them. So they're feeding upwards of 800 people a day. So it's huge. And they've been drilling wells, and so they're providing water for all the community. The municipal water hasn't been working now for quite a while. So they've been tearing down some of the old houses. This is one of the original ones. This is the Mafiro house. And some of them are just in such a bad state of repair that they've actually had to just tear them down and build another one, put all the kids in that one, tear this one down, and it's just this process. They're moving towards a new type of construction, single story, which is great, which I've been asking them to do. And they're using a sort of a different out-of-the-box thinking where they use a concrete fence system to actually Lego block a house together. And so they're trying to get that recognized as viable. I mean, their building code hasn't changed in decades, and so which is strange, because anyways. So that's one of the old homes. This is one of the newer homes. I think this was number 4, which burned down while we were there years ago. So again, it's a 2-story home, but the hope is to move towards a single-story home. Here's a kitchen. They do have an electric stove. They can't cook suds on the stoves because they destroy them, because when they're beating on that sud, so they have to really whip it, and so it'll actually break the elements on the stove. So I don't know what they use the stove for, probably storage. The woman on the right, that's Maria. I was really happy to see that she was there still. She's great. That's a good picture of her, actually. She's kind of a dour, kind of a somber lady, and so to get a picture of her smiling is great.
Is she a house mom?
Yeah, she's a house mother. That's the living dining area. And upstairs, bunk beds and single beds. And the newer homes have a toilet and shower on the 2nd floor as well as the 1st floor, which is great when you've got 15 people living in the house. A woman from Ontario had sent these little hand-knit dolls, like bags and bags and bags of them. And so I was asked if I could get photos of the kids getting these dolls and stuff. And so Cloud and I went over and delivered a bunch of these dolls. You guys have all seen that tattoo on my arm. And so I got to meet him. And he's a firecracker, that one. He just thinks he's a clown. He's hilarious. He trying to explain to a kid what a tattoo is, and explain that is you. That is you on my arm. And he's like, who's this weird white guy? And what do you mean? That's me. And I had meant to bring the photograph that it was taken from, but I forgot. Anyway, so I think somehow he kind of got a vague idea of what it all meant, and then I was his marungu. When I was at the village, I'm walking along, and then there's this little hand in my hand, and it's him running alongside me and stuff, and he wanted everyone to know, since he's mine. And the kid in behind was really cute. He arrived malnourished, and now he's just totally thriving. He's doing really great. Those little kids.
So Grace is the same age as Naomi, just for reference, in size, and then it's Grace now.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it was awesome to see her. She came running up to my vehicle to say hi, and she's really shy, so I was kind of surprised. This is a new development. When I was there, they were building one large school block or school building, and that's complete. And now they've added, I think there's 5 or 6 like this up there as well. And I mean, one of them's a science lab. It's got desks with Bunsen burners and faucets and stuff. And I was just amazed. It looks so good. The government is really impressed with how Eden's doing with their education. The one tricky bit is high school, where they want the kids to be using the government curriculum for high school rather than the ACE from the States. But what they're doing now is using Cambridge distance education with the high school kids. So again, they're getting really good education. It is in English. And yeah, so the school is really developing. They've made preschool classrooms out of shipping containers as well. So the preschool's full. I mean, and during COVID, it was all shut down. The kids had to stay in the village. There was no one allowed in and out except for Stanford, the village pastor, and necessary staff. So all the kids were not going to school for months and months and months. A lot of soccer was played. I mean, what else do you do? You've got 80 kids in that one area. And, the house moms, I don't know how they have any hair left. They're just pulling it out. And Cloud, this is my buddy Cloud. He didn't know I was coming. Ian kept a lid on it for the most part. No one knew I was coming. So actually, he was just texting with me yesterday too, wondering, when are you coming back? And that's the tractor that was sent in our container.
Wow.
The building crew use it, and apparently the farm uses it to haul cows. I don't know if that's future veal or what that is, or stew. I don't know what its name was. But it was great to see that it was being used. Kids looking after kids. That's the some of the contents of the container we shipped. So that was one of the things, of course, I wanted to do, was get into the container, see what was there, and get it out to the stuff out to people who we'd shipped it for and whatnot. It was an absolute disaster, but I had about 6 guys working with me, and we emptied it. They had taken the tractor out, and we were using that, which was great. The Land Cruiser was taken out, and that was being used for better or worse. And but having to just go through all our stuff, and there was a pile of clothing, like with this high at the back, and there were toys, there were tools, there were books, there was just all mixed in. It was crazy. Bandages and medical supplies. So we went through it all. I was able to get the medical supplies. Lawrence came over, and I had sent a wheelbarrow, so we filled it, and he was just going back and forth with the wheelbarrow full of medical supplies to the clinic. So there was a lot more there than they had anticipated. We had sent food. There was a broken jug of maple syrup. But, so it was exciting. It's like, it was almost like seeing old friends, some of these tools, because I just had emptied my work truck into the container. It was like, wow, I forgot I had this. And so that's what it looks like now, having been there, and they had stored some of our stuff in this container, and that container, and that container, and so I was able to amalgamate it all and pack it up. So I found our stove, our bed, that kind of thing. It was so good to see all that there. I have no idea what's missing because there was just so much there. And it feels like so long ago. This is my buddy at the top there, that's Elvis. And my buddy Mishak, who his wife just had either their 3rd or 4th baby, Joshua, like a couple days ago. So Mishak had never used a chainsaw before. He is the quietest man I've ever met. I've said this before too, but he just doesn't talk. And he's just, when he does, he just whispers. He's just so quiet. But he's fantastic. He's watching me all the time, watching people all the time. So he's learning how to put a chainsaw chain on to go the right way, not the opposite way, which I thought would be helpful for him to know. And he's learning how to mix fuel, and he started using a chainsaw, and the grin on his face, he was just glowing. He was, what would take, an hour to chop up this tree was, 2 minutes. I'm hoping there's trees left. When we go back, he was just like, and I hope he still has both legs. So he made some bunk beds for the Fry teen girls. Got to use some of the tools from the container that he'd never even seen before, like a compound sliding miter saw. What is that? He's used to using a handsaw, maybe a jigsaw, a circular saw. So he had a lot of fun using the router, and that's what was made. So it was, yeah. So while he was using this plywood, and I was just looking at it and was noticing how the outside plies were really blonde. They were white, but all the inside ones were brown. I was like, that's really weird. I've worked with a lot of plywood, and I've never seen that before. I was like, hey, Agrippa, look at this. I said, look, it's like me. He's like, what? I said, look at the plywood. I said, it's white on the outside and it's Shona inside. Yeah. He thought that was awesome, and I bawled. Yeah, so that was really cool. And this is Cloud doing a welding, and Henry's a deaf guy. And I had taken him an old iPhone, and he was just thrilled to have that. So he texted me at 3 in the morning randomly. I'm trying to explain time zones. I don't know if he's getting it. And this is Susan Fry's domain. This is the sewing room, I guess. And so this is what they had originally did when they moved to Zim, was they started a sewing business, which they've actually kept that going. So then I learned that her dream is for a similar, I don't know what to call it, space being made for just for sewing as was made for the clinic. She wants 3 shipping containers with a covered courtyard, and I was like, oh my goodness. And you know, I was watching her walk up the stairs, and that's why Cloud and Henry are making railings, because there wasn't any. And she was like, she had just had hip surgery and knee surgery, and there was no railing. And anyway, so we made railings for her. But yeah, she keeps the ladies going. There's a young guy that worked with the building crew years ago, Weiss, and he's back, and he's working his way to become a tailor as well. So again, it's the vocational training thing. I also had the pleasure of going down for a baptism at the dam. This reservoir, they call it the dam. So Henry was being baptized, and 3 other ladies. So Ian was telling me that he got a letter once from someone back home saying that they didn't think that Eden took baptism seriously, and that they really need to be taking baptism seriously. I just looked, I know. He said, yeah, I responded. I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to respond. I went to a baptism once, and there was a python that was going across in front of me, and then you're playing Spot the Croc. So Ian's out there, and he's baptizing. This is like the first woman he's baptizing, and I don't think I included it, but I've got other pictures where he's doing this. Because you can see a 10-foot crocodile just over there, and that's great, because you can see it. But then it went under the water, and where is it? And so they are the fastest baptisms you've ever been to. So he responded, he told the guy, he says, the water will give you bilharzia, which is some nasty parasite. There's snakes, there's cobras and pythons that you have to watch for in the tall grass, and there's 10-foot crocodiles. You really want to be baptized in Zimbabwe if you're going to get baptized where we are. We take it seriously. We literally take our lives in our hands to be baptized and to baptize people. I didn't hear if you got a response.
Maybe I should start sprinkling.
So one of the great things that Eden's doing right now is they've been asked to open up another site, I guess is the word for it, in Croix, which is on a main road from the south, from like Harare to the north to Zambia and points north. Croix means little witch, which is interesting. It's a town of about 100,000 people, and there had been an orphanage there, and it was closed, and that's where Eden got 28 of the kids. So they'd been asked, and can you do this by the government? The government asked them, and they said, yep, sure. So immediately they bought this house, and has a good sized chunk of land with it. The house was a complete disaster. Someone was living in it, they'd been living in it, and it was like a scrapyard inside. There was like a path through all the car parts and stuff. It was wild, but a well-built house. So they're going to put up, I don't know how many cottages, and they're going to start with aquaculture and chickens and goats and stuff. And it's fantastic how much development is going on there already. Just this morning, this video was posted on Facebook. I shared it to our Facebook page as well.
You ready for it?
Yeah, sure. That's Kevin and Susan Fry's house. And this is in Croix, building the fence. And a new house. So the house up in the left-hand corner was the house that was there when they first bought it. This other one up at the top is brand new, and I was there in May, and it was like it was just the interesting. It was just the original house. So they've had bulldozers in there clearing the land. They've drilled 2 wells, built this other house. It's fantastic just to see how much is happening there.
Hopefully there'll be some stuff.
Yeah, so, yeah, that was my trip. Yeah, Pete?
I wanna thank you, your way, when we was over the supper 3 or 4 weeks ago,
Uh-huh.
saying hi to me.
Yeah, of course. I was gonna say hi to you, Pete.
I wanna thank you.
Wow. That was amazing, thank you. And just, it's been many years that we've been getting these reports from you guys about the work, and you've been drawn there. What was the longest that you stayed there?
Well,
About 9 months.
9 months.
About 9 months.
And then came home and then went back for another 9 months or so, and spent 3 months as well in South Africa.
Oh, I remember, yeah. So, and then you've had so many issues, hasn't always worked out visa-wise or, for you to be there, but what a beautiful heart connection. And it all started with Jeannie. You went to school with Kevin Fry, who was the guy who had the idea to build this. And he, if I remember correctly, Kevin was an American who was an expert at landscaping for golf courses. Is that right? Something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
He knew a great deal about soils. And anyway, he had got this idea, and he went to Zimbabwe, he and Susan, and their son has remained there for many years. And they created a wonderful farm for caring for people and caring for children, and now all these things have grown up. This is so unlike the first time, the first presentation you guys made years ago. So much has happened there. Thank you so much for, and you told this story years ago about how you actually there was worship music going on here, and you had kind of a vision experience of a place, a certain kind of place, and the first time you landed at this home, you walked down in the early morning to the lake, and you looked up, and it was the exact thing you had seen. So it's been like you got attuned to your own personal dream, and you've been doing it ever since. Thank you. Trying to. Yeah. Yeah, Jean.
I did meet Kevin at college, and then he left away for medical reasons. And then I had never met Susan. I went to visit my parents, who worked at a Christian children's home in Oklahoma. Kevin and Susan were house parents, and they got that experience of being with children in that capacity. And then
I never knew that part of the story, or I forgot. I did. That's amazing. Yeah. So that was from Oklahoma to St. Stephen to Zimbabwe, and I'm sure so many other communities involved as well.
I'd be curious to know what's going on with the whole visa requirements now, not necessarily specifically you guys, but, I mean, it has seemed so crazy historically. What are they asking for now?
When we go back, it'll be with a work visa, which is sounding more positive than it's ever been. Actually, even seems to be enjoying a level of approval or favor with the government now than they have ever before. So it's very, very positive.
That's wonderful.
So God bless that place. God bless you guys. I hope that I hope we all have a rich week. Goodbye.